Well, some of the media are blaming President Trump for the violence because of his harsh criticism of the protesters. But David Harris Jr., one of the Black Voices for Trump coalition, defends the president. Take a listen.
This is exactly what the mainstream media wants to do. They want to try to continue to fabricate lies, to connect racist dots between a president that's actually done more for the black community than any president since Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, the president that freed the slaves. You don't want to hear about that, and the mainstream media isn't going to tell you that. You actually should want to hear about that, because that would make you want to vote for the man that is actually doing more for the black community, the Hispanic community, for women, than any past president I can think of, Republican or Democrat.
Well, David is also the host of the David J. Harris Jr. podcast and a fellow at Liberty University's Falkirk Center. He joins us now. Welcome, David.
Much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, David, so good to have you. Clearly, you agree with the president on his statements, his very bold statements that he has done more than any president for the black community. You say it as well. Do you think that the others in the black community agree with you? Do they think this as well?
You know, those that actually know the facts. The problem is we live in an age and an era where the mainstream media controls a large percentage of the population, and especially the black community. Unfortunately, they're getting their news from MSNBC and CNN. It's ingrained into our culture, and they don't talk about the achievements that this president has made in the black community. When I talk to individuals in the black community that don't know those facts, I encourage them to do the research for themselves. Look at his funding for historical black colleges and universities. I asked, why didn't President Barack Obama, our first black president, why didn't he sign permanent funding into law? He didn't. He was in office for 8 years. Donald Trump signed it into law within 3 years in office. I say, look at the jobs report. Look at the unemployment before this pandemic, before the crisis. The black unemployment in this country was at its lowest point ever. And then I hear some of them say, oh, well, that was due to Obama. And I just have to remind them, wasn't it President Obama on his way out of office that said all these jobs aren't going to come back, that Trump doesn't have a magic wand? It was the president, when he came into office, that began to undo so much of the policies that actually pushed our jobs overseas, that wound up creating the booming economy that we had and the jobs numbers that we had, and gave us the lowest unemployment rate the black community's ever seen in this country. So when I begin to educate, then they seem to change their tune a little bit, and then they just go emotional. But sometimes people are waking up, so it's good to see.
You know, David, I keep asking, what do we need to do to move forward, right? The officers have been arrested who committed this horrific crime against George Floyd. But I'm trying to figure out, how can we move everything forward? In Virginia and other places around the country, they're removing statues. Is that part of the answer? And if not, what else needs to be done as far as you're concerned?
You know, I think that what we all should hope takes place is that the rioting, the looting, the destruction of property, and the destruction of businesses stops. And, you know, my heart tore in two when I watched the video of George Floyd literally breathing his last breaths and then becoming lifeless and limp. My heart was torn in two, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and riot. I truly believe there's a lot of well-meaning people that are marching and are believing in this social justice that they feel is necessary. However, I still think that a lot of Americans, most Americans, need to know the facts about what's truly taking place. But the last thing that anybody should be doing is looting and rioting businesses. And I really believe that it's Antifa. There are anarchists among us that would love to see the absolute destruction of this country. They don't want to change anything. They just want to destroy it. And we, the American people, need to be the ones to step up and say no. And I've seen in certain instances where individuals that were just wanted to cause havoc were being stopped by well-meaning Americans. And that needs to happen. We need to do a lot more of that.
You know, you had recently said that the police need to police the police and ferret out those that are in there. Obama said yesterday that this needs to happen, reform needs to happen on the local level. We don't have much time left, but do you agree with that?
Well, I do think that some things need to be changed as far as how the police view themselves. There's been that blue shield where officers don't tell on or don't expose somebody that is maybe a racist or does have tendency to use excessive force. I think that they need to be applauded for coming forward, and that there should be maybe a special department that takes those instances and actually investigates them further if they're not handled at the local level. but I do definitely believe that some reform needs to be done and that officers need to be courageous enough to step forward and expose fellow officers that are going too far.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your insight into this.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, the current and past defense secretaries speak out against President Trump, and Congressman Lee Zeldin, an Army veteran, is here to break it all down. Plus, our series, Blocked and Banned, Social Media Censorship of the Right, continues. Another social media platform has targeted President Trump. So what can he do about it? We'll ask Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk and Professor Alan Dershowitz coming up.